So we're at a 3-bedroom apartment inspection and we're keen to find out if the 3rd bedroom actually is a bedroom. A lot of families have been priced out of freestanding homes, so they look to 3-bedroom apartments, especially if they have kids. And with the government building more homes, including apartments, to try and ease the housing crisis, are they properly designed for families?
Everybody will grow up in a house. Ultimately, they want to buy a house with a backyard. But with a lot of young people these days, especially when you have kids, you don't really have the money to buy a house, especially how expensive houses are these days.
3-bedroom apartments make up just 15% of all properties in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane.
It's volatile at the moment because there's just such a severe lack of stock for 3-bedroom units. They get chewed up almost immediately.
There has been a prevailing bias that apartments are for singles and couples only, and families or households of more than 2 people should live in freestanding houses. We haven't supplied apartments for families.
Obviously it's a massive privilege to even be in the market, but the average price for a 3-bedroom apartment in Sydney is $1.3 million, which is about $500,000 more than the average price of a 2-bedroom apartment. That's a lot of money for one extra room. I'm impressed by 2 bedside tables.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes you can only fit one.
Yeah.
And you've got the bed like pushed to the corner.
Yeah. There's no way it's going
I
for
feel like this will
me.
go for like a 1.5, but this is a real steal.
In those new builds, so the 3rd bedroom could get really small, but this building was built in 2000, so you can tell all the bedrooms are quite equal in size.
Wow, okay.
Just keep being more and more impressed.
So is this in your budget?
No. And how often do 3-bedroom apartments come onto the market?
Oh, very rare. There are 300 apartments / units sold in Ashfield, but out of this 317 been 3-bedroom, so it's for like 5.5%.
A lot of people have told me that when they're inspecting a lot of the 3-bedroom apartments, the 3rd bedroom is significantly smaller than the other 2. Is that also something that you've seen?
A lot of the newer builds, yes, they try to cram in as many rooms as possible and just make it as small as possible to have that 3rd bedroom. But I think a lot of the older builds around the 60s and 70s, especially like red brick build, they would have pretty sizable bedrooms.
Listings of properties and the number of bedrooms are open to some interpretations. So you'll often get a 3-bedroom property that might more accurately be called a 2.5-bedroom property.
Why aren't developers building 3-bedroom apartments if there's such a demand for it?
I think when it comes to developers right now, it's just very expensive. Building costs, labour costs.
They want to make as many properties as they can. So a 3-bedroom might be equivalent size for a 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom combined together.
The way we develop property tends to work to volume building is where the efficiencies are gained, so doing the same thing over and over is what we lean towards. A better outcome is when we have much more variety, and so having larger apartments, having 3-bedroom and even 4-bedroom apartments is a real positive and something we need to move towards.